The Mariners have a bunch of important roster decisions that they're going to have to make over the next couple of months. The first of which is going to be whether or not to accept or decline Jorge Polanco's option. According to MLB, 5 days after the end of the World Series, a team must decide whether or not they want to accept said option. As you can see here, it's a club option for $12 million in 2025, Polo's age 31 season. It has a $750,000 buyout as well, so if the Mariners do decide to decline said option, they will have to pay him $750,000. For Polanco, he had a 296 OBP with a 355 slugging and a 93 OPS plus in 2024, hitting just 213. He did slug 16 home runs, however, but he's getting on the older side of 30 now, and for the Mariners, does it make sense to bring back Jorge Polanco, who honestly has been their best second baseman over the past couple of years compared to Adam Frazier and Colton Wong, but for $12 million, can they do better on the free agent market? If we look at Jorge Polanco's 2023 Baseball Savant page, we can see that his launch angle sweet spot percentage was in the 94th percentile, his barrel percentage was in the 88th percentile, while his exit velocity and hard hit percentage were still quite low. We don't see anything for his bat speed or his squared up percentage because those just weren't stats in 2023. But if we go to his 2024 page, we can see that his launch angle sweet spot percentage is way down. His hard hit percentage is down, of course. His average exit velocity is down. His barrel percentage is down here. He struck out in the 10th percentile of all hitters, which is a massive jump for him. And he wasn't very good defensively either, in the 2nd percentile in range and the 8th percentile in arm strength. For Jorge Polanco, he looks like a guy who is heading the wrong direction. He looks like someone who's running out of gas, somebody who has played for 10 years and has had a great career, mainly for the Minnesota Twins. But for the Mariners, does it make sense to bring this guy back for $12 million in 2025 when he's clearly headed the wrong direction? He's, again, an aging veteran, a guy who still put up 16 home runs for you at second base with a 93 OPS plus, but for $12 million, you can probably do better than that in the free agent market. The next thing the Mariners are going to have to decide on is whether or not to bring back Justin Turner. He'll be a free agent at the end of this year, and he did say that he wants to continue playing. He also said that he wouldn't mind coming back to the Mariners in 2025, but do the Mariners want to do that? Do they want to bring back a veteran who, at first base, maybe DH for you as well? And how much would it cost them? Looking at his numbers, it might not be a bad idea to bring Justin Turner back. In 2024, Justin Turner signed a one-year, $13 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, the Mariners only had to pay about $3 million of that, but nonetheless, a $13 million deal in his age, what was it, 39 season or whatever it was, going into his age 40 season next year. How do we feel about giving Jorge Polanco like a $7, $8, $9 million contract going into 2025? It's going to eat up quite a bit of the budget that the Mariners are rumored to have, but at the same time, he was a really good veteran presence for them, and it's not like he's super expensive. Again, looking at his Baseball Savant page, that launch angle sweet spot in the 95th percentile, his square, he hit the ball, right? He didn't swing and miss much, he didn't strike out much, he was in the 82nd percentile in walk rate, and while his bat speed is in the 1st percentile, he has one of the slowest bats in all of baseball. It doesn't matter, because clearly he produced results for you. Now you can compare that to 2023, and honestly, it looks like he had a better year in 24 than he did in 23. More walks, he was really good in this area specifically, the chase rate, whiff rate, etc. He was squaring up the ball quite a bit in 2024, he was hitting the ball harder. So yeah, Justin Turner, while he is 40 years old next year, and a guy who obviously is regressing in the twilight of his career, if you will, it might make sense to bring him back on an $8 or $9 million deal. I think the hard part there is what kind of role do you bring him back as, because I don't think he should just be handed the reins as like a starting first baseman for the Mariners, because honestly, they need to find a way to get better over there. If they think that Luke Raley and Tyler Locklear are the two guys to put at first base and maybe have Justin Turner just as a DH for you in 2025, maybe that's the move. But I'm not sure if he's willing to take that role. I'm not sure if the Mariners are willing to give him $8 or $9 million for basically a glorified bench spot, whereas he does deserve to start. He played well enough in 2024. He gave up the Mariners like a 126 OPS plus. He deserves to start for this team next year, and I just don't necessarily know how it's going to work, because the Mariners have two other really big positions that they need to take care of in 2025, and that is the Mitches. What do the Mariners do with Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver? The double Mitch Witch might actually still be around next year. We'll have to wait and see. But Mitch Haniger will probably pick up his player option, and of course Mitch Garver is signed next year as well. Let's take a look at their contracts. So again, Mitch Haniger has a $17.5 million player option for next year. He will have to decide on that, similar to the Jorge Polanco option, I Bleav within 5 days after the end of the World Series. So we should know what he's going to be like next year, whether he'll be here or not, which, I mean, he would be really stupid to not pick this up. But also, like, what a legend, right? Like, if Mitch Haniger knows that he is not providing $17.5 million worth of value to this team, like, what if he just decides, hey, you know, I'm not going to take my player option. I'm just going to let you guys have that money to spend somewhere else. What a legend. It's not going to happen, but it'd be so cool. So $17.5 million for the Mariners next year in 2025. And we know how bad Mitch Haniger was in 2024. Just looking at his numbers here, 208, 286, 334 with an 84 OPS plus. Really bad year for Mitch. He did hit 12 home runs, 126 strikeouts, 240 walks. Yeah, somehow not the worst year of his career, where he had very similar numbers last year with the San Francisco Giants with less homers, but a very far and away different player than he was in 2021 or even back in 2018 where he was an all-star. Mitch Haniger, I really think he just needs to retire, but at the same time, like, maybe he can be a glorified bench guy for you. The problem is if he's going to play, he will probably need to be your DH. You don't want to put him in the outfield. You already have Randy, Victor, and Julio. You don't want to put Mitch in the outfield over those guys, so what are you doing then, right? The other thing is, there's one other guy who is probably going to be relegated to a DH role, and that is Mitch Garver, who in 2024 hit 172, 286, 341 with an 85 OPS plus. He hit 15 homers with 51 RBI, struck out 133 times. The first time in his career he's ever struck out over 100 times. Also the most games he's ever played in his career for Mitch Garver. The Mariners signed him to a 2-year deal with a mutual option for 2026. That will obviously be declined. That'll be a $1 million buyout for Mitch Garver in 2026. But for 2025, $12.5 million is what he will be owed by the Seattle Mariners next year. So between Mitch Garver and Mitch Haniger, you're paying these guys about $30 million between the two of them for them to basically sit on the bench and be nothing for you. So what do you do in that situation for that roster crunch? Because for the Mariners, I don't know if they can have Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver, and Justin Turner all on their roster next year. Between the three of them, you're probably looking at $40-ish million worth of your payroll in those three guys. And we know for a fact that Mitch Garver and Mitch Haniger are not worth those contracts next year. Justin Turner earned it. He earned that amount of money next year. I am okay with bringing him back on that kind of contract. The other two didn't earn it this year. So what do you do with the contract of Mitch Haniger and or Mitch Garver next year? Haniger's obviously the one who is least valuable for the Mariners. Garver, at least he can catch for you. He's also cheaper than Mitch Haniger. So do you find a way to trade off Mitch Haniger's salary, maybe for another bad contract elsewhere? I don't have anyone at the top of mind right now. I'm sure we can delve into it later on this offseason. But something similar to what we saw with the Robinson Cano trade, where the Mariners were able to trade off Robinson Cano. They had to trade Edwin Diaz in that deal, but they got back Jared Kelenic and etc., Justin Dunn, blah, blah, blah. They also got Jay Bruce back in that deal, who was a contributor for the Mariners that year. Whereas Robinson Cano basically wasn't going to be a contributor for the Mariners. They got the money off their books, and they had to take on the bad contract of Jay Bruce. He ended up being pretty helpful that year, so could the Mariners find a way to do that with Mitch Haniger? Whether they be trading his money for like a bullpen reliever or something like that, I'm not really sure what the deal would be, but you have to find a way to have one of the Mitches off of your roster in 2025, in my opinion, because neither of them offensively are much help. I think there's a much bigger chance that Mitch Garver can be better offensively than there is that Mitch Haniger will be helpful next year offensively. So with that being said, I would try to find a way to get rid of Mitch and his money because he's making way too much for what he provided you in 2024. I don't know exactly how the Mariners are going to be able to do that, but I think that is the route that they need to take going into next season. There are so many different roster crunches the Mariners are going to face this offseason. What do they do at shortstop? Do they find a way to replace JP? How do they fix third base with Josh Rojas and Dylan Moore? Because obviously Gino was the better third baseman. Wish we could have had him last year. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. The Mariners have so much going on over the rest of this season, and Joe and I are going to be talking about all of it, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and go Mariners.